Nikki, who were you before the you that you are now?
I used to be a complete workaholic. I had no social life. I didn't spend time with family. I didn't socialize. I didn't party. Um, yeah, and that was me pretty much straight after university.
What if you could identify, you know, obstacles or and maybe what would have been perceived as difficulties at the time that you were able to first identify and then overcome? Is there anything that kind of sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, there's two incidences that happened, two massive milestones in my life. The first one was when I was fresh out of university. I got my first job. I was a web producer working in London. It was the most incredible life. And I was working really hard for this company. And I was working really long hours, but I was really successful. And they were sending me to different countries to work. And I was I was at the top of my game. But I worked for that company for 3 years. Then after 3 years, I showed so much loyalty towards the company that I started getting sick. And it was just a little pain in my wrist. And I just ignored it and kept on working. And then it spread to my other wrist because I was compensating. I just kept working because I literally was so busy, I could not take time off to go to the doctor. And the pain spread up my arm and it started getting crazy, like shoulder pains, shooting pains. So in the end, I had to drag myself to the doctor. And he said to me, "Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because you've got really acute repetitive strain injury, RSI." And he said, if you'd seen me sooner, we could have done something, but it's so serious that you're going to have to take a couple of weeks off work and then really review how you're working at this company, taking regular breaks, finishing at 5 o'clock, having a proper lunch hour. And as he was telling me this, I was horrified because I thought, I can't tell my boss this. He's going to go crazy. I wasn't even able to get time off to go to the doctors, let alone come back and tell him this. But I remember telling my family, and my mum was like, "Listen, your health comes first. You really need to go into work and tell him this, and he's going to completely understand. Don't worry." So I went into work with my doctor's note, and he took one look at it, and he said, "Well, you can't really do this job if you've been signed off and you're sick. So you might as well leave and go home. There's no point you working here anymore." And I was so super shocked. I could not believe that he was saying this. Um, and I was in a state of shock. I went home with all my belongings from work, packed up all my desks, and I went home and I was in just so depressed and shocked that I'd worked so hard for this company for 3 years and that they were just sacking me like that. And I'd shown so much loyalty and I hadn't taken lunch breaks and taken time off to see the doctor. And I'd worked late with no overtime. And here he was just literally sacking me. So after a few days, I got a call from the HR department saying, "What are you doing at home?" I said, "Well, James sacked me." And they said, "No, there must be some misunderstanding. Come back into work." And I thought, this is really weird. But they realized that it was unfair dismissal and I had to go back into work so that they could prove that, they hadn't sacked me. So I went back into work and it was really awkward with my boss because, he'd sacked me, but there he was. And there I was, knowing that I wasn't wanted. And they pushed me to the
Mm.
side and pushed my desk to the side, and they didn't include me in any of the company meetings. And other people would get the credit for my work, and they made life really miserable for me at work. And I realized that this isn't what it used to be. And I just feel that this company is not showing me the loyalty and respect that I thought I had and that I'd literally given to them for 3 years.
Mm.
So it meant that I had to come up with a strategy for myself. So
I was going to ask, do you remember what you were feeling during that time?
I was so depressed because the doctor had given me anti-inflammatory tablets and these exercises to do, and the tablets were really interfering with me, giving me side effects, giving me stomach problems. They were so strong, and they wanted to give me steroid injections in my hands as well, which I was really against because, one, I don't like needles, and two, it just didn't feel right to give myself injections to numb my hands so I'd be able to work. So I was at a super low point.
And then you mentioned that you had to come up with a plan. So what was that plan as you started to, I guess, maybe open to the idea of change? That something needed to change?
And so I thought, okay, so this company is not showing me loyalty. I've been through university, I've studied hard. I thought this is it. I thought that working like this for a company was this was the ultimate place to be. But I realized that no, I need to think differently now. I need to look after myself. I need to survive. I have to make an income for myself. So then I had to research how I would start my own business. Because I obviously couldn't rely on a company to look after me. So I researched different ways of starting businesses and how to be an entrepreneur and reading lots of books and researching on the internet. And I got a loan out and then quit my job because the only way I could get a loan was to show I had a salary. And everyone was really shocked that I quit my job, but I had to think about my own happiness. And I was literally being bullied at work. And, it was the biggest change I had to make. And so there was another couple of things that made me so headstrong into starting my own business. And that was one, I'm actually Indian, and it is traditionally favorable to have sons in the family. And I was one of three sisters. My parents didn't have any sons. And our relatives used to say to my parents, "Oh, it's such a shame you don't have sons. What bad luck your family has." Because, women are not considered as hardworking and successful and able to look after the family. So that made me even more angry and more determined that I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to show these people that I'm strong. I'm going to show my boss. I'm going to show my relatives. I'm going to prove that I'm able to start my own business. And that was a huge thing for me. And also my father had had a serious accident, and I felt that I had this responsibility towards the family to look after them. And that was the other thing that fired me up. So I started my own business. I took the loan, and the first thing I did was I bought a rundown old property, and I thought it'd be really easy to fix it up and make some money. But I didn't have any money to pay for a builder, so I had to do the building myself. I slept on the floor, and I was on the train with paint buckets because I'd sold my car, which I bought with a student loan, because I thought it'd make me feel better about work. But I was doing all of this and trying to take the wallpaper off, and chunks of wall were coming out. And it looks easy, but it's so hard work. But I finally managed to renovate it all myself. And it went up in value, and I was able to take some equity out. And I didn't sell it. I ended up renting it out. And I still have that tenant to this day in that property. And then I thought, this is really cool, but I'm going to need to step up my game a little because I can't do this on my own. So, and I couldn't afford a builder. So I decided to learn a lot of building trades myself. And so I read something called the Builder's Bible, and I learned how to do electrical work, plumbing work, tiling, and intricate cavity wall insulation systems. And I learned how to do building work myself. because when builders used to come and give me a quote, they used to try and rip me off because they thought, oh, she's really young, she doesn't know anything. But now I knew everything about the building trade. I studied really, really hard, and I was able to tell builders, this is what I want done, and this is how you're going to do it, and this is how much you're going to charge me, instead of them trying to come in and overrule me. And pretty soon I started getting into other industries. I started learning about web and print development, and I started my own web internet business and web design business. And then I started my consultancy business, and I was working on online campaign management, and I started a PA services business, and then I started a property management business and training business. I started multiple businesses and was a serial entrepreneur, and was so addicted to creating these businesses. And I felt I was like my father, like he'd be so proud of me. My family were proud of me. I was so successful. I co-wrote a book, and I started speaking at different events, and I felt really good because I was able to inspire other people to start their own businesses and make a success of themselves too.
So, what was you mentioned inspired, but do you remember the differences in how you felt most of the time from how you were when you were working for someone else?
Yeah, I felt safe knowing that all the work that I was putting into my own business was mine and no one could take it away. And because when I was working for a company, I was still giving all my time because I was fresh out of university, and I felt as if it was my company, but it really wasn't. And that company wasn't able to show me the same loyalty that I gave to them. But having my own business, this was, I could put all my energy, all my effort, all my resources, all my investment into this business, and knew that I was safe, and it would be safe for years and years to come. And it would have a ripple effect on my life and my family. So it meant everything to me.
Mm, really, a difference between building somebody else's dream and building your own dream.
Exactly. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was it was my dream. And it's really funny because when I worked for that company, and when they wanted to reward you, I remember that I'd worked all weekend, no extra pay, and evenings. And they gave me a CD voucher for all my hard work. And I
Mm.
thought, wow, everyone was so happy with their CD vouchers. But I kept thinking, hold on a minute. This CD costs £10. And literally, I must have worked like £500 worth of extra time. So I always felt there was an injustice. But it's quite hilarious to see how that company showed their loyalty.
Mm. Now, you've you moved on from working for someone else to working for yourself, building out all these businesses, and it sounds like you're quite successful by most standards.
Yeah,
You,
I was a serial entrepreneur. I was heavily involved in business 24/7.
so, do you feel like you were fulfilled and were able to balance that with other areas of life, or were you self-sacrificing in most other areas of your life?
I sacrificed a lot because I wasn't spending time with the family. My friends used to ask me to go to the pub with them or to go out to London with them, like partying. I never partied. I didn't socialize. I didn't drink. I was solely obsessed with business. And I remember my having family dinners and me just not being present at the dinner table, which is so shameful now. But I just wouldn't be present. I'd be thinking of something. I would never be able to switch off from that. It was constant.
Mm. So, what transitions have you made since then? Since just focusing on business to where you are now?
Well, there was There's another major thing that happened to me in life that made me actually examine and go within and look at myself. And that was when I moved to Ireland. I moved to Ireland for business because I wanted to look for more opportunities and more challenges. And I felt that Ireland, there was still a lot of growth. And it was just an hour from where I live. But business the economy was doing really well there. And I met another young female entrepreneur that I could do business with. So I was super excited, and we set up businesses that were quite successful there. And I was still managing my businesses from Ireland in England too. So, but I wasn't expecting such a huge change in my being. And that is, I connected to the Celtic energy in Ireland. And by now, my business is running quite passively, and I have this business partner. So I wanted to spend this time into learning more about myself. And that was a really challenging thing for me because I didn't know what I liked doing. I didn't know what I was passionate about. I I I didn't know how to have fun. I was so serious in work. I didn't know how to let my hair down. So I had to examine this all again and think, what do I like doing? What would my perfect day be? What if I wake up in the morning and to the evening? What are the things that I want to do? I literally didn't know. So I discovered something called meditation, which I was really able to just sit still and really connect with my inner guidance. And it was Joe Dispenza's meditations that really made a difference to my life, because they're guided, that you're able to do like breathing and able to connect with your heart. And I started receiving inner guidance and really tuning in to what my body needed and what my life needed. So that was a huge thing for me, because everyone, including me, I was so invested into everything externally and not really looking within. I was always trying to see what I could do outside of myself. But really, the answers, it sounds a bit cheesy, but the answers are within, literally. Mm-hmm. You can tune in and really feel what you need, and you just get insights coming through. And I was doing an hour's meditation a day, which I felt was really powerful for me. I also felt by meditating, I realized that there were a lot of things from my past that I hadn't healed and were coming out in relationships, and there was childhood trauma. And obviously these things, if they're not dealt with, they come out through your cells, through illnesses and disease. And I wasn't the healthiest of people because I was always eating on the go. I was always busy, so I was always having takeaways and going to restaurants. But really, I had to examine what I was eating, my diet, and I went heavily into that health technology as well, which is a whole other thing that I discovered. But also, there was a lot of anger in me. I had a very fiery side to me, and it's something that I really wanted to delve into, that where is this anger coming from? And I felt that being in the property business at that time, I was in a male dominated industry. And so I had to really become more in my masculine energy and really I was getting angry and fired up because the builders were trying to take advantage of me all the time. Like, I had so many things that happened to me that I really became way too much in my masculine energy. And I was examining all that through my meditations. And I was also really hard on myself, I felt. I was self-critical. I used to do things like I'd wake up in the morning and I would not allow myself to have breakfast because I felt, no, I need to get through all my emails first and then I'll allow myself to have breakfast. And then I'd do the same thing for lunch. I'd be like, no, I need to get to this point and I'd be so hungry, but I'd be cruel to myself. And I thought, if I was working for a company and they said, you can't eat until you get this done, it would be so cruel, right?
Hmm.
But I was
Yeah.
treating myself like that. I was really mean to myself. And, these things had to be examined really deeply because, even when you wake up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, I look so tired, I don't look good. But instead, when we wake up in the morning, why don't we say things like, wow, I look so alive and my eyes are sparkling and I feel really great today. So, I really gone into this critical way of thinking and even a little bit negative because I was so hard on myself. I knew I had to make it work. So these are all things that I had to really examine. And you can't switch off when you're an entrepreneur. You're working like weekends and evenings, and that really changed in Ireland because if there's anything in the body that does not serve you, you have to really look at it and to release it and send it away with love and really create the right intentions in your life. So yeah, I started looking at that.
So how would you say your feelings have changed? Because you mentioned kind of like really low points and depression, with regards to when you were working for that other company, and then you shifted, to working for yourself, and then you shifted again to bringing more balance into your life. So in kind of scenario 2 and 3, how would you say your feelings on a regular basis have changed?
So much more because I had more harmonious work life balance. And also, when I was a workaholic, I was using more of my logic, my left side of my brain. But this creative side came out of me in Ireland, and I felt, I was able to be present with people and socialize with people. And my family didn't recognize me because they're like, wow, you seem so much more balanced. The nature in Ireland is incredible. And we also have the most beautiful, really wise masters in Ireland that like people from all around the world come and see. And I delved into energy healing after that because my father's side were entrepreneurs and my mother's side were intuitive healers, but I've always ignored the healing side of me in the past because I didn't think it was that important. I wanted to be like my father. So the Celtic energy, awakening this side of me, got me interested in learning more about energy healing. And so I went to a Reiki master and I learned all 3 levels of Reiki. I became a master myself. And then I did all 3 levels of Seichem energy healing, which is Egyptian energy healing. And I became a master in that. Then I opened my own practice in Ireland, and I was on the beach, so people were able to hear the waves as they were receiving healing from me, and I was able to provide intuitive guidance to my clients. And so I still had the business side going, but I also had this other beautiful side where I was able to give back and help people and be really tuned into my inner guidance and become more softer and more in my feminine energy as well. So overall, way more balanced than I was in the past. I had these gifts coming to me. I suddenly became like an oil painter. I'd never painted in my whole life, but suddenly I won a painting competition within 6 months in Ireland, which was incredible. And so these different, opening the right side of my brain, these different gifts started coming to me, and it was really beautiful.
Would you say you feel more fulfilled now than even with the success you had with just kind of the business side of things?
Absolutely. I'd say I was I'm so much more fulfilled because I'm connected with my heart. I'm more present. I'm more slower. When you're working, you're not in the present moment. You're always thinking a few steps ahead, or like a few months ahead. You're always thinking about, but what if this goes wrong? What if this happens? In all different scenarios, you're very rarely in the present moment. And
Yeah.
so being in this new energy, I was so balanced. I was so much more grounded, and yeah, I think my family loved me a lot more too.